All right, welcome to the show. I've got with me Mark G, and I'm calling him Mark G because his last name's a little tough for me to pronounce. So, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. And for all the fans out there, if they're wondering, it's pronounced Girolimetti, uh,
Thank you.
which is long and obviously Irish, and it's a learning experience for everyone to understand an 11-letter last name. But I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, and see, my last name being Schmidt, you you know how many times that name gets screwed up? Like I can't. I have people that call me Schmint. Like where did what? Like what? Anyway,
Hey, if
so
anything, we can bond over being two-thirds of the axis of evil right here. So we've already gotten this podcast started off correctly.
all right, here we go. Let's do this. All right, bud. So before we get into your projects and what you're working on, we want to get to know you. So, what's your history with gaming? Did you grow up on the Nintendo, Atari, anything like that?
Yeah, so it's really funny, and it's really cool doing something like this because you kind of got me thinking about my past, and I remember being 6 years old when my dad bought us our first Atari 2600,
Yes.
and the beautiful thing is now with Jack's Interactive making all the old school handheld controllers again that you sort of just plug into your TV. I now have that Atari joystick. Of course, it's got 30 pre-built games into it instead of one big cartridge that you have to keep blowing out. But I remember a friend had geez, what was it, the Atari 8000 or something like that. That was such like a big beast, and we used to play Ultima all the time. I mean, it was just such an insane thing. But of course, we were still kids, and it was back in the day when you would spend most of your time outside playing. But when it rained, man, we hit those consoles hard. But I think I naturally progressed. I mean, I grew up with it, so I progressed into actually the Commodore 64 after the Atari, and got my Larry Bird versus Dr. J on a lot.
Yes.
And then graduated to the original NES, and of course, it wasn't, everyone makes the duck hunt jokes and holding the gun up to the TV, but mine came with that Gyromite game, with the little robot that you had to keep spinning the tops in order to move the pillars up and down, which was just so insane, and you just realized right away you could cheat and use your hand. But um, after that, and then went into N64, and then into PlayStations, and I've actually had stopped at PS2s. One, because I think it's such a perfect console, and I think the PS3 is such a gigantic beast, and the 4 is kind of nice. And I haven't really got into Xbox, but now I'm old enough. I've got nephews and whatnot. They're Xbox maniacs. But it's really funny being sort of the older, not older, but older than the kids' uncle, and they're sitting there on their Xboxes playing whatever they're playing, and I ask if I can play, and they all laugh at me. And when they laugh a lot, I just kind of look over my shoulder and I say, "You have no idea what you're about to get yourself into." And then I literally slay all of them in every game we play together.
Attaboy.
I've got 30 years on you, kids. I was like, I'm not the old man who doesn't know what he's doing. But yeah, so that's how I was raised in the space. I mean, it was culture, and I was lucky enough to be born in an era that sort of got right in the heyday of it when it took off, and we had the Atari. My next door neighbor had Intellivision. Another kid had ColecoVision. So that was the cool part with so many competing consoles back then. You get to bounce houses and play different games and have different experiences, which really made it, and everything was so unique and cool. And you just kind of really, you had a blast with it.
Yeah, dude, that's you hit the nail on the head. That is for sure. I used to bounce between all kinds of houses, between who had the Sega, who had the Nintendo, who had the Atari.
Right.
It was always back and forth. But it's funny. I got kids. They're like 13 and 11. My boys are. My girls are a little younger, but they're great at Call of Duty. They love that kind of stuff. Halo. They've been playing. We've all been playing Destiny, which is great.
Yep.
Actually, I think I don't want to admit this, but I think I was up till 3 a.m. playing Destiny and then got up at 6 this morning. So you know, I'm kind of highly caffeinated, so I'm in that state of like extremely tired and extremely wired all at once.
Well,
So
the good thing is you're a parent, so you have that ability to make that happen, and sort of work off of zero sleep and somehow power through the day. So
yes,
I get it. I'm right there with you. Although my
yeah.
kids just play the Wii, which I'm completely fine with, or they help me test my apps, which I absolutely adore having my own kids be able to sort of be involved in my work. So that even makes things better.
Oh, for sure. And it's funny too. You know, you say you walk up to your nephews or whatever, they're playing Xbox. You should pick up an old NES and make them play Contra. Tell them, you know, you beat the first level of this, and I'll give you $10. You know what I mean? Like they don't stand a
And I
chance.
won't give him the cheat code either.
Exactly,
I'll use it for
exactly.
myself.
I had even Contra 4 was on the DS, and I had an ongoing challenge with anybody that I walked up to, you know, my kids included. But it was like, if you can beat this first level, you can have all of your continues, and you can have, you know, use up all your lives. You beat this first level, I'll give you $20, and not one person
Oh, that's
ever
awesome.
ever did that. But well, how about did you have like a favorite game back in the day?
I definitely, it's really funny. I I'm definitely like as when you I always look back upon the Atari real fondly, and that you know Missile Command was definitely one of my favorites. But I was a Centipede dude all the way, and I
Okay.
actually ended up working for a company in my mid 20s, and they had a Centipede in the office, and oh my God, we used to have these epic battles. And the funny thing is that there were a lot of people who were just young. It's funny, you work in this startup in your mid 20s and you're actually old. And so you have these people who are younger and just missed the cutoff. And they were, you'd inspire them to play, and they'd never played it before, which was really fantastic. And that actually happened to us outside. We were at a pizza joint at like 3 a.m. next to Harvard University, and it's all full of students, and they had a Miss Pac-Man machine in there, and they had no idea what Miss Pac-Man was. And my wife and I and a couple friends just hammered that thing for an hour, and we were going nuts. And all these students are looking at us like, who the hell are these crazy people? And by the time we were done, one kid at least asked me what this game was, and I tried to explain it to him. And then I said, walk up to the register, hand him $5, and ask for a roll of quarters. And I said, it's going to change your life. And he did, which was awesome. So I love being able to pass on that old school stuff. And then, I made that mention earlier with the Commodore and Larry Bird and Dr. J. That was absolutely one of my favorites, just because it was such a funny, little, simple game. And, being from the Boston area and growing up in the 80s with the Celtics and whatnot, and Larry Bird being Larry Bird, it was just the coolest thing in the world to actually play that. And those are the things I really love. And those are the ones I look back on most fondly. So especially if I find an arcade these days that has all those 80s style games, I go nuts. And I'll be the happiest kid in the room.
Yeah, man. There's actually I stumbled across this place called Docking Bay 93 in my area that has probably 25 to 30 arcade games and
Oh,
probably
that's awesome.
10 pinball machines, I'm guessing.
Oh,
And
yeah, and pinball is my other favorite. Oh man, I will walk up to any pinball machine and go nuts. And actually, once I was bidding on eBay for the Harlem Globetrotters machine,
nice.
and I had the lead for so long, and then even up to the last minute, I kept bidding and had the lead, and then literally at the last second, someone sniped it away from me.
Uh,
I was so devastated. It was the worst,
yeah.
the absolute worst. But in college, like we had a pub on the campus, and we had the Return of the Jedi pinball machine, and my God, if I didn't live on that thing for hours on end, and I had the highest score for the longest time, and one day I went there for a like 5-year reunion or whatnot, and I walked in and the score was gone. And I asked the manager what happened. He goes, "Oops, we had to unplug it once." And I was like, "Oh my God," because the number was lower than my high score, the current high score. I was
Oh,
so crushed.
oh yeah, of course.
So crushed.
Of course. So it's funny you told that kid to go buy a roll of quarters. This past week, and I've mentioned it in a couple of the shows, I was actually at Chuck E. Cheese for my kid's birthday, and we had all the family there, my folks and my sisters and stuff, and my sister and I, she grabbed it, she's like, hey, let's go play basketball or whatever, whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't got any more coins. Like, we're getting ready to finish up, do the gifts or whatever. And she's like, oh, Dad's got coins. So literally, here we are, like in our 30s, going asking Dad for quarters, right, to go. And I'm like, it seriously like kind of took me back. I'm like, whoa, like we haven't done this for like you know 20 odd years,
Right.
ask,
Right.
ask Dad for quarters for the arcade machines.
Right. And
So
how often do people our age actually carry coins and paper money these days? I mean, everything's digital. So
yeah,
you would think like your parent might be the only one carrying those things.
yeah. Well, it just turned out that he had the big, at Chuck E. Cheese, you got to
Yeah,
buy
right.
those silly coins. So he just happened to be holding the cup, but it was just funny to have him put those in our hands. Just it was just like, wait a minute, we haven't done this for years.
That's awesome.
But anyway, let's talk about what you're working on, man. What do you do?
So a couple of years ago, I founded. I actually had come out of a startup that it was sort of advertising technology, but it was for online video and video games, and so that was sort of my not really my foray into the space, but I was sort of creeping closer and closer to it, trying to help, especially indie game developers, monetize their games. We'd gone out and raised a ton of money. It looked like it was going to be really successful, and then, as all startups go, at the drop of a hat, they can disappear, and that's kind of what happened. And so I went on this little soul-searching mission, and I come from this family of board game developers, but really just sort of in-house family-only style games. And my parents showed up one Christmas and put a new game in front of me, and we started playing, and we had a blast, and we kind of changed the gameplay a little bit, we changed the rules a little bit, and then suddenly in my head, being sort of the software guy in the family, it hit me, you know what, you need to take this thing digital. And that was when Red Raider Studios was founded, and then I needed to actually, I don't program, and therefore I had to go seek a co-founder and possibly two co-founders, and built built the company from that point on, and really had to sell people not only on the vision of, I sort of created a vision. It wasn't like, here's this game, let's go build it and cross our fingers and pray that we can become a legitimate company. It was, we're going to be a real company, and here's our plan. We're going to keep crunching titles out. We're going to focus on creating games that enhance people's lives and sort of brain exercise and strengthening. And so we can target kids, we can target adults, and we can target seniors as well. And really provide something of value to the community of people who like to play games. And so being able to sell that dream worked out really well, and was able to get, we were able to get to a prototype, for example. And then one of my original co-founders sort of decided he needed to go on a different path in his life, and so we had a very amicable split, and he's still a supporter of ours today, which is great. But we have a new co-founder, and his name's John Wheeler, and he came from Blue Fang Games. And if you know Blue Fang, those are the guys who created Zoo Tycoon. And so John has just been this amazing addition to the team, because his experience goes so far back, and he has this incredible knowledge of the space, and I'm learning so much from him as a result. And then, me being sort of this entrepreneur with this, forward-thinking vision, and how do we take advantage of where markets are going, et cetera, et cetera. I just sort of can teach him in reverse how do we build a new video game company? And even in between my last startup and this startup, I had consulted with a studio that was really trying to go after. They're still building an MMO RPG, I mean, huge, big PC-based title, and I got to go to PAX on the and help them get the PAX out west in Seattle, which was an incredible amount of fun. So to see it from the inside and from the fan perspective was really cool, and then to sort of take it in our direction really was inspirational. And so that's where we are. In our first title, Silo, or what we call Silo the Game, just trying to be a little kitschy with the title, but that was out last December as a beta on Facebook, and then we've just taken it over to iOS, and we're knee deep in building it out for Android right now. So that's our first title. We've got 7 more to go. We already pre-planned 8 titles, and then who knows where we're going to go from there. But it's nice to have at least 8 to keep you busy, and then I can worry sort of about the business and the marketing aspect of everything, and then John and Brian, who sort of do the design and development, can worry about that. And it's awesome. It's exciting, and I feel like we're getting into it at just the right time, and I feel like the people, the players, are ready for something like this. And there's definitely a market that wants these style of games, and we just have to go out and find them and make them happy.
All right, tell me a little bit about Silo. What kind of game?
Yeah, so Silo is really at its crux. It's really a board game. Like I said, it's a board game translated to digital. It's a dice-based game. And the objective is to move pieces through we call it silo because we designed grain silos, and we have a 2-chute grain silo, and you have to move hay bales through the silo. So we're keeping with the farm theme a little bit, because we like to be local, we like to support organic farming and whatnot. So, but And what you have to do is within the gameplay, you roll your dice and you take the dice and have to build math equations in order to achieve numbers that are on the board. So, for example, if you roll your dice and the number on the board is 46, you have to build an equation to achieve 46, and that's how it goes. And you do that throughout, and the objective, you move 5 bales out. First one with 5 out wins. Sounds really simple on paper. When you actually play it, it gets really fun. And it's a turn-based game, so you have to play against an opponent, and it gets really exciting. I've been getting text messages since we've launched from folks saying, I can't believe this, but I'm totally addicted already. and those are the best ones to get. Or I had to stop playing. My husband got mad at me because I constantly had my face buried in my tablet. And so it works, and it appeals to people. But most of our these first 7 titles are all rooted in math. But we don't position ourselves as an educational company because we want to. We care more about gameplay and experience a little bit, so the math is not sort of technically correct. We don't use parentheses, for example, so if you want to do 10 times 6, you can't do 6 plus 4 in a parentheses times 6. We sort of calculate the numbers in real time, and that adds an entire layer of strategy to everything and gets people thinking in critical ways that they're not used to. So some of the feedback is, damn you, I can't do the math I've been trained to do. And it's like, well, there's a fine line between fun gameplay and you wanting to, get an A on your test. So, and that's kind of where our root is. Our root is in that, that sort of critical thinking component and the exercising of your brain and the ability to feel sharper and smarter as you grow. And as adults, we sort of get brain fatigue because we're not constantly exercising our brains. And, you read these studies in the New England Journal of Medicine, for example, which these type of puzzle games and Sudoku-style games help ward off Alzheimer's for seniors, and to know that you're on that mission, it's really exciting to know that you possibly have that ability to help people improve, and that's why we're doing it. That's sort of our philosophy at the end of the day.
I love it, man. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about your strengths. You said you started this company with a little bit of a software background, and then you basically started building a team, correct?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I went to school to be an entrepreneur, so I knew I've always wanted to do this, and I never really cared about the what until I got a little older, and I've been involved in so many startups. Finally realized that the what has to be something you're madly in love with. And it's not just where you see a market opportunity, you want to chase the money. That can get boring real fast. And so, like I said, I got that Atari at 6 years old, and I've been in love with this ever since. And so it makes it really easy to get out of bed in the morning, or it makes it really easy to kind of crank all the way, through the night when you're inspired by something. And but my background really is, it's been in the software space, it's been in internet technologies, it really comes from a product management side of things. So sort of being the, in a lot of cases, the brains behind everything. You're just not the implementer. You sort of come up with the blueprint, and then someone else kind of takes it and runs with it. And that's the exact process we have. And but the cool thing is that it's not just like, oh, it has to come out of my brain. John showed up one day and said, hey, I have this. Or for example, we build on the Unity platform, and when we were trying out Unity to see if it was viable, we came up with a new title just in doing R&D. We just sort of were playing around with it, and it spun out this whole new title that we had no idea we wanted to create. It just happened to be here's this little prototype, and it was this like big light bulb moment. And then the two of us sat there and brainstormed for another couple hours, and boom, like here's the next title we want to work on. That's the real cool stuff, and it doesn't have to be just coming out of me. And John doesn't look for me for ideas, and I don't look for him for ideas. We all just sort of trigger them, and Brian's the same way. Brian has amazing feedback. Brian does all of our UI design, and it's amazing just sort of how the three of us work together and get this going forward. And but at the end of the day, like having that background that I have makes all of this easy, because it's product management is product management, and software development is software development, and those are the sort of the basic fundamentals that are behind all of this. And if you have that knowledge, then you kind of can do anything.
I want to break the process down a little bit, man. Like you had this idea for this board game that your parents brought you, and then you pitch it to, is it a friend, or is it just somebody that you knew had the ability to help you get this project going? Well, what did that pitch look like? Like how did that process work?
Well, the easiest thing in the world is when you have the board game prototype to physically put in front of somebody. You don't have to do much talking. All you have to do is say, here's my idea. I want to create a development shop, and here's the first title I want to go after, and here's how this is the game, and this is how it plays out. Let's play, and we'll play, and tell me how you feel at the end. And you get through like 10 turns. And Brian, for example, looked at me and said, "I'm in." Like he knew what I wanted him there for. I said, I pitched him and said, "Come over for lunch. I have an idea. I want your thoughts on this." And he just looked at me and said, "I'm in." And when it came to recruiting John, when I made when Rich had to step away from the company, I had Rich was the developer, right? So we had no primary developer. And so I just took a flyer and dropped $25 on a Craigslist ad, and I got, as you can imagine, the worst responses, and most of it were people who didn't read the ad correctly, and it was like, oh my, I said, look, I just need to do an equity trade on this. can't pay you a salary, or I can't pay you an hourly rate. And then you get all these emails that would say, I have cheap rates, I'm only $50 an hour. And I'm like, great, I'm glad you charge $50 an hour, but apparently your reading comprehension skills are weak. You can read. So right when that ad was about to be up, I got this email from John, and one of his former employees is actually my neighbor when he was at Blue Fang. So he knew the neighbor and I were connected on LinkedIn. So he did a background check on me. He said, "This sounds really intriguing. Can we get together?" We were supposed to meet for a half an hour. I brought Silo with me. We went to a bar, which is my favorite place to meet anybody. And so dropped the game up on the bar, and he started playing it. And that 30-minute meeting turned into a 3-hour meeting. And at the end, he looked at me and said, "I'm in." He goes, "This is fantastic." And he goes, "I can't tell you what that rush is like to launch a title, but it's that rush that I'm craving right now, and this seems to be, the type of game that I want to get involved in." And that's really how it started. I mean, it doesn't take much when you have a good, especially game, just in the context of this conversation, when you have a good game, people know it, and they want to be a part of it. It's been like that throughout. I mean, people who have helped us beta test have then gone the extra mile, and someone who might be in PR, for example, what can we do to help you? I love this game so much, I want to see it succeed. What can we do to help you? Or people in other sort of facets of life, or in, venture capital, for example. If you need any introductions, let me know. But living in the Boston area, we have a lot of people in the gaming community, so it's really easy to bump into folks and get experienced people's opinions. And I can't tell you how many meetings I've had. Just bring the game and get people playing, and they all get hooked, which is fantastic. And then then it's, I can't wait till it comes. I can play it on my phone, for example. That's the validation we need. But that's really our process. I mean, it's simple. It's not complex. It's not big. And I think we're lucky. If it didn't work, if it was a terrible game, we wouldn't be able to do it as easily as we have been. There hasn't, the resistance that we get is just through the technology we're using to build it. I mean, using Unity for iOS, for example, is different than using Unity for Android versus Unity for Kindles and Unity for Windows. It's, those are the roadblocks we run into. It's just technology roadblocks, but those are all easy to resolve. The internal process of working together and the collaboration of getting it done is great. I mean, it works for us. It's cordial, it's friendly, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's real, it's human, and that's how I want to keep everything philosophically moving forward.
Absolutely. So we're gonna kind of get down to, we're gonna talk some business stuff. All right? Are you cool with that?
Sure. Let's go. Let me get my professor hat on.
All right. Go ahead and put that on, and we'll get going here. There were some key things you had to do to recruit. Would you say his name was John, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you had to. I mean, you had to, one, show him the game.
Yep.
But I mean, on top of it, there's got to be a plan, right? And you mentioned like the 8-game plan or whatever, and so I mean, you're looking at, you've got the game that you're showing him, and then did you have a time frame laid out for him?
I did, but at the same time, I told him, if you're serious about coming on board, I want you to take a fresh look at everything. And even though I would like to get this done as soon as possible, within, say, the next 30 days, because we had made progress. I mean, Rich had gotten us to a point. John just needed to finish it. But I said, if you have a valid reason to slow it down, just tell me, and I'll do it. I mean, I don't want to hold up something that is going to be, help us be successful in the long term over a delay of 30 days, for example. And that's kind of what happened. And so I gave him a 30-day time frame to finish, and then he said to me, you know what, I'm looking at this, and I'd like to just attack it a little from a fresh perspective, and I want to re-architect things to make them more flexible moving forward, because with having these games that are rooted in math and rooted in dice and rooted in creating equations, that's sort of a simple central platform for us to base our games off of. So he wanted to do it where we can sort of translate that code, from game to game to game without having to rebuild it every time. So then we could get more efficient and churn the titles out faster. So what ended up being, a 30-day time frame ended up being almost 60. And so it was an extra month. And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't a big deal at all. The bigger challenge was then, and that was so we could get our beta up on Facebook, and the bigger challenge was going mobile, and we started down the path of we were going to do everything native, and we looked at the time frames of doing it native for each platform and realized it was going to take forever, and we either had to run out and get an investment so we could bring on staff, but we weren't ready as a team yet to do that. So that's how we found Unity. And when you get into these sort of third-party platforms, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, the way they position it, it's like build it once, push a button, and boom, it's in Android, and then boom, it's in iOS, and it magically will solve all your problems. It doesn't do that, but that's okay. But it shrunk a process that was going to take about 18 months down to 6 months. And so, and part of that was just sort of taking the beta and making wholesale changes as a result of that. So part of it was just listening to our customers and looking at the data of how people played. And then, so we extended our timeline out just based on real changes that were, the game as it is now versus how it was last December is different. Not totally, but for us behind the scenes, it really is different. But now that we've moved on to Android, things are flying together. One, we're more comfortable with Unity. We just have to recreate what we did in iOS. So there's nothing from a requirements perspective that we needed to change. So we know exactly what we're building and what we want. And that is, and that's how we speed up the process, which is great. So if we can get this thing done, especially prior to Thanksgiving, I'll be the happiest person on the planet. If we can have, 2 platforms before the holidays, that's exactly what I want. But, and here's a real business sort of, and I didn't mention this earlier, but here's the real business behind what we're doing. One of the struggles you see video game developers have, especially US-based developers, is they tend to develop for the US market. And if they're successful within the US market, then they figure out a way to sort of translate out to the global market. We don't have to worry about that because we use math. And math is the one true universal language that is the same across the globe. And so all we need to do from a translation perspective is just translate language. Literally just do language translations. But the game is the same for everybody. And that's the beautiful part about it. And with our one of our features is just click play anyone and you get matched up randomly against random players. So you could technically play somebody in Germany while you're sitting in Iowa. And that to me is incredibly cool, and you're playing it with sort of minimal effort required to make that possible. And we're starting to see that. We're getting some European players now. When we did our beta, we had people in Brazil and people in Indonesia, as well as across Europe playing. And I have a feeling it resonated because it is that universal language. But that's that's the big thing that we push. Is like when we launch, we can instantly be a global game and have mass appeal right away without having to worry about it. And that takes a huge burden off of our shoulders, especially as small as we are right now.
So you You got John on. You said you were gonna. It was gonna be shared equity, not an hourly rate, not a per job kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, obviously, the sooner you guys get something launched, the sooner you guys start making money, right? What has been the monetization strategy for you guys? What you said you started with Facebook, correct?
Yeah, so Facebook we just kept free, and we did an ad implementation, but on Facebook, we used a couple different vendors. We wanted to A/B test them, and the ads were really, we were small, so we didn't have the traffic required to get the good ads, for example. And even
Okay.
good ads, people don't love good ads. You know, the money isn't just serving ads, more more than it is clicking through. And so we kind of just decided, you know what, let's just do pay per download retail, and that's what we're doing through iOS, and we have a promotional price of 99 cents. And you can have 10 different conversations with 10 different industry veterans, and they'll give you 10 different answers and in terms of what you should do to monetize it. Do you want to go IAP? Do you want to just go straight retail? Do you want to just do ads? And Silo is built with the ability to do IAP if we want to turn it on. We just want to see where retail goes, especially because we have kids in mind. Even though we have to have a separate kids version to sort of meet all the requirements of a U13 title, and so as much as we know that kids in fourth and fifth grade understand multiplication and division like you need in this game, and addition and subtraction, which kindergartners know, you still have to have that separate title. So and parents don't want ads, and most parents don't love IAP just because of the trouble you can get into with it. All of a sudden there's 25 bucks on the credit card, and like, what the heck just happened? And so we kind of want to avoid that. We want to be a little bit of a safe play, and we just want to see, we just feel like, Candy Crush, for example, has set the market on IAP, and they make a fortune in this space because of it, and they torture you with their game in order to force that money out. I heard a story the other day of someone spent 30 bucks to just go one level. And in my head, I'm like, that's insane. And I played Candy Crush to just get an understanding of it and how we would, potentially use IAP. And you just realize if you play a level 20 times, it'll eventually break down and you can solve it because it's a flipping puzzle game. If you're smart, you can solve puzzles. So why spend 30 bucks to move through it? But most people don't have that patience. In our case, even if we do IAP, it will be in small, and give people real value for that purchase, and not just nickel and dime them through. But so right now we're just going to go the 99-cent model as an introductory price. We really kind of want to charge $3 to $4 for it, because that would pay the bills a little better. But right now we just want to acquire some customers. We can survive at this stage. But in our other titles, which will be a little bigger, maybe have 3D integration. Another one we've talked about, I'm staring at your shirt, and we want to kind of maybe go 8-bit with the design, which keep it nice and small and simple. And so everything's different, but if we can create a fan base and people see value in what we're creating, then we can worry about maximizing the revenue in a little while. But believe me, it's on my mind. But the cool thing is we're making money right now. Silo's selling. Not a day goes by where Silo isn't downloaded. So that's the cool part about it. And though we're not, I want to get down to, selling one per minute, if I can get on that sort of sales scale. But right now, if I'm selling, one per hour or one per 5 hours, that to me, that's a victory. By the sheer fact that you need friends to play, our users and our fans will be helping to grow that customer base. So, I've always joked that I want to be that company that people bitch about on Facebook. that no, I don't want to play your game Silo. I want to see those complaints on Facebook, because if I do, that means we've been incredibly successful as a result.
Mm.
So that completely works for me. If we can be that, and if we can be that annoying game, then and I'll be quite happy.
Yeah, you were talking about $30 on Candy Crush. I have a family member that spent 1,000 in 1 month.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, if you want to introduce them to us, I'll you can just tell them we can start with $1, and we'll see where the
Yeah.
relationship goes.
Yeah. Um, well, it's kind of cool to hear you say this, because I mean, a lot of times on the business side of things, it's about getting the minimum viable product out, right, and then adding updates to it and keeping it, keeping it alive. But at least get it started, get it out, and then build it up. And it sounds, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like Silo, for the most part, is the complete product, but it is also the the minimum viable product. Like, you're, instead of just keep adding to it, you've got other games down the road that you're going to start working on. And I think it's a great plan. I think it's a plan that people could follow.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Silo, just Silo alone, is that we already have Silo 2.0 planned out. And so a lot of times throughout this development process, we had these great ideas, and then we'd quickly discuss it, and then we'd be like, move it to 2.0. And so all of a sudden, 2.0, you looked at all the notes and documents that we created for it, and it was like, oh wow, like we really do have an upgraded game. And that's awesome, and I'm excited to get working on that whenever we have the chance to. But you're right. I mean, that has been my push all along. Was like, let's just get the MVP out and see what people do with it, and give it to the customers. I mean, I'm firmly in that school of handing your work over to the customers and letting them decide what the future looks like. I don't need to dictate everything for this corporation. None of us have to. If we are a supporter of letting our customers do the dictation for us, then I feel like we can be wildly successful. And that's how things went with the beta. A lot of what changed from the beta to what came out on iOS was directly related to feedback from the customers. Since we've gone out on iOS, and then we use some of our own data collection, just watching how things were used or weren't used, and then made changes, maybe took some things out. And some of the things we took out apparently upset people. And we didn't know it because the data said you people weren't playing it. And then it was, well, I wasn't playing it because it was on Facebook and I didn't have my mobile device, but that feature actually is perfect for my mobile device, and now I want it back. So now we're talking like, okay, let's figure out a way to get it back, because that actually makes sense. And we didn't think about that at first. We just thought it was a feature set. But it's a feature set. It's amazing to think of feature sets that do well on laptops, for example, versus a mobile device. And then you have to think, oh man, like it's amazing that you think you're creating this mobile game, and then you realize there are pieces of it that do well on different devices, and you have to sort of cater to that. And that is incredible feedback to get from your customers, and it's feedback that I'm really open to hearing. And they're, everyone's happy when I say, wow, and when you have that moment, like, wow, that's amazing. Like, you really might be changing how we approach things. Getting them involved on that level, customers love that. They love feeling like they're part of the story, and they really are. And I hope they write the rest of it for us.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's great, man. It's perfect. Getting that feedback and knowing exactly what people want, that's the way to do it.
Right.
That's
Right.
absolutely the way
A
to
lot
do
of people don't. They get stubborn with their vision, and I wrote a piece online a while ago, about faults of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs like to think that their baby is the prettiest baby on the block, when in fact it's ugly and looks like Winston Churchill. And that the successful entrepreneur is going to be recognize that their baby's ugly and still think and let people sort of tell you it's cute, instead of telling everyone, look how adorable my baby is, and then not listening to, oh, maybe they need a I don't know. I'm losing it right now, but it's an exciting conversation. So I could go on all day about this and then ramble. So
Sure. Well, maybe you can give me the link. Give me the link to that article you wrote. We could put it in the show notes.
oh, cool. I will definitely dig it up. So
Yeah, that'd be great. But I think so. Some of the things that have kind of got me thinking, listening to you talk here, is like, I've interviewed a number of people now, and a lot of them have said, don't don't bite off more than you can chew with that initial game. Like, and I love how you said, okay, we've got the ideas for one, and then as you guys were brainstorming or whatever, ideas would come, and you go, nope, put it in 2.0, put it over in 2,
yeah, yep.
put it over in 2, and that's great. And it instead of just tossing the ideas out, it's just like, no, these are things that you can implement when the sequel's ready. And but we need to get, like, you need to do like you guys did and get that initial game decided on and done. And 60 days, man, that's great to get it out. That was to get it out on Facebook, correct? And then you've been working on the other platforms now.
Yeah, and we had worked on it for about 8 months prior to that in terms of what my original partner was doing. So it was taking that work that we did up to that point, and then John finishing it off.
Okay.
With me thinking it only needed 30 days based on the original plan, and John saying, you know what, I want to re-architect it a bit so we can make it flexible moving forward. And then the funny thing is after that beta, we actually threw everything out and went over to Unity, so we had to re-architect again as a result. And that was a tough decision. That was a wow, like we had set everything up so we could go native, and now we're going to decide not to go native just because of our size and our resource challenges, and that we knew that was just going to be an automatic delay because it was going to take time to get familiar with the software, and then to have software that really kind of is built for the 3D realm and trying to go 2D with it, and now finally Unity's come around and realizes that, wow, maybe we need to support the 2D crowd, and they really have kind of circled back and done that, which is fantastic, and we're completely happy with them. It's just, again, there's little challenges for the platforms within the platforms, and every SDK, when you open it up, it's a Pandora's box of joy, and you don't know what you're about to experience. But it's now that we've kind of gone through this hard part, I feel like we're in a really good place where moving forward we can start moving fast and swift, and then we can start picking and choosing off the shelves, what do we want to do next? Do we want to do 2.0? Do we want to do the next title so we can have a second title under our belt and then do 2.0 after that? I mean, there's so much, and now we have to make real smart decisions. I pitched to an investor group once, and in the pitch, I didn't realize I was pitching until like the last minute, and because we weren't fundraising at the time, but I sort of I laid out the whole map of what we were doing and what the schedule I had in my head of the next titles. And our second title, I labeled, this is going to be our most successful game, guaranteed. And I got hammered by these, angel investors saying, well, why the heck in the world would you build a game first that's not what you think is going to be your most successful title? And I said, well, Silo, for one, is the most simple of all the titles we want to create, and it's going to be the core foundation for every other game. And we're going to work through all these kinks and have to climb these walls and fight these fires to get it out. And then once it's out, it'll make building the easier one, the next titles much more easy. And those titles are much more complex. And so, I want to have that solid foundation in place before worrying about the complexities. And that's another thing that can distract you as a young company. You could potentially, we could be sick of Silo. Oh, I'm done with this. I'm tired of this damn game. Let's move on to something fun and fresh. And we could kill ourselves based on that. But we've really stayed focused, and I've kept that ship going forward and keeping everyone focused on it. Because sometimes we do get around to wasted. It's not a wasted 2 hours, but we spend 2 hours brainstorming about new ideas. But you realize it's really good and it's fresh for us to just recharge a little bit and not think about what we've been grinding on for the last few months. Just take a 2 hour break and think about something new to energize you and give you something to look forward to moving forward. And some days, we take a day off. John needed a couple days off, and he just wanted to create something new. He's like, I'm really, I'm burning out a little bit. I need a couple days off. Okay, no problem. Take a couple days off. It stinks in the short term, but if it's going to help you be a better developer and make this game better or all of our titles better, go for it. And I'm a huge supporter in that. Just tell me. I mean, that's all I care about is just tell me. Don't don't jump in the car and go on a road trip and then not say communicate for a few days. But as long as you need to step away. I don't mind. And I feel like it makes us more creative as a result.
Yeah, and that's what That's what we need, right? We need our brains fresh for creating.
Sure. And it's hilarious when the irony of it all is we're building games to make people's brains better, and to even think that you could burn out on that is insane. And so I'm very quick to say, well, it just ruins the philosophy of what we're doing. So just step away, get away from it, walk away, take a few days off. I don't care. And then come back, and the thing is, when we do come back to it, we're far more productive, and we make up for those 2 days in maybe 24 hours, and that works out great.
Yeah. So let me ask you, bud. We're gonna get ready to wrap up here. What you got some resources or anything for Unity that you'd recommend?
It's Unity itself, the support boards are pretty good. And then all the, Apple's got their support board for Unity, Amazon's got theirs, Android's got theirs, and we use Stack Overflow a whole lot. Anytime there's a problem that we run into, we first run the Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow. It's a really good community, the very supportive developer community. You haven't run into too much. It's really funny. Like when I see negative people on boards who try to make you feel stupid, which to me it's like you can run into that software engineer. He reminds me of the comic book store owner from The Simpsons, and it's just like, how did you know you didn't own you don't know the ending to Rocket Man number 146? Makes you feel stupid for not knowing things. That's not the Stack Overflow community. Everyone's super supportive, and we've posted a couple things, and John's posted a couple things and gotten some good responses. I actually get amazed that some these individual developers who are just in it, building things for themselves, which is fantastic. Post all their code up if they have a problem, and I'm just like, and then someone will solve the problem for them. So you have the code, maybe it's a little broken in one or two strings, someone solves it for you, and then someone else can come along and just copy and paste the damn thing. And there's this huge trust there. And I like that. And that's been it so far. And then other than that, the good thing is we have contacts at Amazon, for example. So we've run into a challenge there. And instead of wasting any time, I just emailed the team and just said, look, we're having a problem with something that you made for your platform. It works over here, but it doesn't work here. Instead of trying to solve it, we spent a couple days trying to solve it. I can't waste any more time on it. Can you help? And they want to know if something of theirs is broken. So why keep it in the dark? The same thing happens with the Facebook crew. Having a relationship over there is really helpful, and they've helped move us along in some cases. But when you deal with these platforms, some of these companies are just too big to know that certain things don't work, and they need their community to point it out for them, and they're usually quick to resolve it for you, which is great.
Very good, man. So let me ask you, this is kind of a fun question. What would you tell 18-year-old Mark if he walked up and said he wants to get into the game industry?
It's the beautiful thing, and I've done some adjunct teaching at Boston University, and I occasionally get invited to speak at other schools in the area. And I most recently spoke at Becker University in Worcester, and Becker has an entire program dedicated to the video game industry, and it's a soup to nuts program. It's really from the visual creative side, it's from the development side. It's amazing what they're doing over there. And it's also amazing that when I was 18 and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that's why I chose the program I went into at Babson College, which is a school, it's a small school, but it's famous for its entrepreneurship program. But back then, it was, you thought of something on a grander scale that involved manufacturing or something of that level. And now, what 18-year-olds can do these days, I mean, it's not even 18, you can be 12 and you can build an app. I mean, you can be 10 and build an app. And there's all this stuff now that have just completely killed the barriers to entry for young people who have amazing ideas, and so we don't have to suppress the youth anymore. And it's funny because I'm a huge fan of Fishbone, and the famous Fishbone song "Fight the Youth." Like, I always took that to heart when I was a kid. The man's out to get me and whatnot. And now it's like our generation has now put all those tools in place. So the next generation doesn't have to fight the man to actually get into what they want to. And so the opportunity's never been better. It's never cost less. That was one of the barriers for me when I was younger, where I just went from startup to startup to startup to get more experience and then create more of a profile for myself, because I didn't think I had the financial wherewithal to endure that challenge. Whereas now you could get away with it for a few $100 and you can get something. Sometimes you don't even need anything, and that's just incredible. It's an incredible time and an incredible opportunity that's there for the taking, and you just need that motivated kid who wants it. And I feel like it's going to get better and easier for them, and it's great because as a 40-year-old entrepreneur, I get to take advantage of it too. Starting, this has been the cheapest, as far as investment startup that I've done, because we don't need it. I mean, there's so many resources for us that cost either nothing or very little that have helped propel us forward that even 10 years ago never would have been possible. And that's if I had to tell any teenager right now, any middle schooler who's really interested in this stuff, and believe me, I hear from my neighbors, oh, my kid's obsessed with Minecraft and now he wants to go out and play, wants to build video games, and is that a viable career? And I'm like, you're staring at someone who has a career in this space. So, and we live in a nice neighborhood, so something's got to be working. But it's just one of those things where the opportunity's there, and I'm all for supporting young kids going bonkers with this. And it's not just you feeding the system with either your hard-earned money or your parents' credit card. It's you can create the system, and it's so easy to do it now. And I hope they do. I really hope we see titles coming out from the sub-20 group, because that would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And what's the best way for somebody to connect with you and maybe see Silo?
Well, Silo is in the iTunes App Store, so you can just search. It's actually easier to just search for Silo. When we first started this game, there was nothing called Silo in the App Store. Now there's about 3 or 4 things, so you might have to scroll a little bit to find it. Silo Game, at Silo Game is on Twitter. I'm at MSGIRO on Twitter. We have a Facebook page for Silo. We have a Facebook page for Red Raider Studios. There's a bunch of ways to connect with me or us as an organization, and we love it. I mean, the the more people involved and the more people chatting with us, the more fun this gets. And we'll chat about anything. I mean, today we put a picture up on Facebook of Garbage Pail Kids just because it talk about bringing you back, 25, 30 years. I mean, that's why I did it. I was like, oh my God, like, look at this. This is pretty amazing. And there's a whole generation of kids who kind of don't know what those are, but it's like that was the cool part of our youth. And so anyway, just, find us any way you can. We're a bunch of lovable dudes, and hopefully be a much larger company in the near future that's going to, hopefully maybe someone who watches this wants to work for us, and we find a future employee as a result of it. I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to make it the most fun place to work, and we're all you get to do is come into work and build really cool stuff every day. I mean, that should be inspiration enough.
Sounds like a dream, man. Well, hey, I do appreciate you coming on, and maybe we'll get back in touch after 2.0 launches or one of the other games. All right?
Anytime, sir.
All right, buddy. You have yourself a great day.
Thank you. You too.